Hey guys, Scott Patton here. You know, it is fall now. October's, we're going into the middle of October. November's gonna be rolling around, and there's so many lakes that we've got in this part of the country. Any of them that's got grass. One thing a lot of anglers come down here to Chickamauga for is they want to frog fish, and we got Gunnersville. We got several lakes. On Pickwick you can frog fish, and there's several of them out there across the country. And again, and remember guys, if you don't have the grass mats, that you can always frog fish around docks. You can frog fish around treetops and stuff like that if those lakes that you live on don't have grass. But what I'm really going to talk to you today about is the frogs I use, a few tips I've got that might help you catch more fish on a frog and all that good stuff. So let's kind of dive into it. All right, there's really basically three different type frogs, you guys. We've got just your standard frogs, just a single frog, the old standard frog that we've had out for years. And then we got a popping frog. Of course, you got your popping frogs and stuff too. That's going to make them more commotion in the water. And then we got what I call more of your buzz frogs, the ones that's got the legs on them, stuff like that. You throw them out there, you can reel them and stop them, reel them and stop them, and they buzz as you're fishing them. Okay, so those are your three standard frogs. The one I usually start out with most of the time, it's just going to be your standard frog. I'm going to start mainly with just a regular frog, you guys. Okay, this frog here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it out there, and I'm gonna just twitch it, make it look like it's jumping across the water. I'm not moving it that much, maybe just a foot or so. And then I'm gonna stop it. I'm gonna twitch it some more, stop it, twitch it some more, and stop it. And then I'm kind of trying to aim. And you got the big mat out there. I'm trying to look before I make a cast or any possible small holes. And it ain't got to be a completely big clearing or nothing, but you still want to fish those too. But any kind of small hole that may be in the grass, stuff like that, because that's going to give that fish a better target if he's in that area to strike the fish. And he knows that spot's there, so don't think he doesn't. He knows his surroundings. And so if he sees something comes around them smaller, thinner patches of grass in a big mat, that fish knows that he can attack that frog and get his prey right there. So this bait here is not going to make a lot of commotion, but it will move the grass, especially on a calm day. And sometimes they just don't want a lot of activity on that grass mat when you're fishing these frogs. But there are times where they are going to want, you may have more wind, or the grass mat's super thick, and sometimes they just want that type of noise. The majority of guys might be out there, usually when you got grass fishing lakes like this, when you're fishing mats, they get plenty of pressure. So a lot of guys, this is your typical style frog that most guys are going to throw. But you can take a popping frog and it have a different sound to it and move more water, and might get you some bites over fishing behind other guys, because it's rare to really be fishing behind, not to be fishing behind guys, whether it was the day before or 2 days ago like that, or sometimes some of these grass beds I see they get hit 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day. Okay, so changing the sound of your frog by going to a popping frog can make a big difference sometimes when you're fishing behind people, or again if you got a lot of wind or even cloud cover. I think it helps a lot during the cloud cover and stuff too, you guys. Just gives them something to find. And something else you gotta always keep in mind is these are standard size frogs. All these frogs right here they're about 2 inches long. That's the standard size frog that most guys are going to buy and use. Okay, when I go frog fishing, I usually have several different frogs tied on. Most of the time I have your regular skip, regular frog, your popping frog, and your buzz frogs tied on. But something else you got to keep in mind, guys, is let's say if we'll go with the popping frog. Again, here's your standard size. I'll go with a larger size popping frog. Okay, and you see the different size of the silhouette that's going to create on top of the water. Sometimes your bigger frogs will draw them bigger and better fish. You get more of a quality bite out of that bigger frog. And plus, again, it's a different profile on top of the water. I'm telling you, if you're fishing grass beds, unless you own the lake, you're going to be behind fishing. You're going to be fishing behind people all day long, all week long, all month long. Okay, so sometimes, you know, just changing the profile also is something that you can do to help you catch more fish and get more bites. There's also the third size frog, which is this real tiny popping frog. Now you might say, you know, that thing's, you know, it's so small. We'll have a picture of all three of these together so you guys can see them in a photo here. But this small popping frog, it is unreal. A lot of guys, these are fairly new. That size here is about a 1-inch frog, and it's like I said, the fish haven't seen as much. A lot of guys ain't gonna go out there and buy 5 different colors frogs and 5 different color or different sizes and stuff. So again, you know, the average guy going out there fishing is going to pick out that standard, that medium-sized frog, where that small frog, you know, downsizing a lot of times can make a big difference. And I also know too, going to a small profile in white, especially when they're feeding on small fry and stuff like that, can make a big difference. You know, versus if I was throwing this frog versus over that frog. You know, you can see the difference in the profile. If they're feeding on a lot of small fry, then a lot of times, guys, you won't be throwing that small frog, okay? My next tip with, you know, with this is colors, you guys. You just never know what color they're gonna prefer. I mean, it's crazy. You know, I guide here on Chickamauga, and I'll go out, and a lot of times I'll fish the same grass beds, you know, 2 or 3 times a week. You know, I usually try to alternate areas unless I just got an area that's really good. Now I may hit it every day. But it's crazy how one day they'll hit a black, you know, the next day they want white, you know, one day they want the popping frog, one day they want the regular frog. So, you know, you have got to keep an open mind and try different profiles of frogs, different colors of frogs, and even the way you're working them, okay? You know, sometimes, you know, you can move that thing, you know, a long ways across that mat, and there's times where I'll throw that frog out there, and I'll work that frog all the way across that mat without stopping it, and they'll blow up on it and blow through that grass and get it. You know, a lot of guys that aren't experienced frog fishing, they don't believe that, you know, until they start seeing how aggressive these fish can be in these grass mats, they don't understand how these fish can track this stuff down and blow through that grass and eat it. So, you know, unless you're just going super crazy fast, you know, that may be too fast, but you can move that frog fairly fast across that bed you got, grass bed, you guys, and still have those blow-ups. You know, like I said, usually my standard retrieve is just twisting it, letting it stop, twisting it, letting it stop. But I may you know, keep it moving 4 or 5 feet, 6 feet, then stop it, move another 5 feet, stop it like that. You want to kind of see what kind of, you know, speed or they're wanting that frog in, and the reason you got to do that sometimes, it may not just be the mood they're in, but it's because they've seen that frog so many times, guys working the same way, twitch, twitch, stop, twitch, twitch, stop. You know, they see that day in and day out, you know, once these fish get in these grass mats. So, you know, experiment with color, experiment with the retrieve, and experiment with the size of the frog, you guys. You know, and also the type of frog you got to, you know, play around with it and experiment with that. Now, as far as tackle, I prefer a 7'6" rod. I will go to a 7'4" rod. This is a Lew's KVD flipping stick. Actually, extra heavy. I like this rod a lot for frogging because it doesn't have a real long handle like a lot of flipping sticks. Is a shorter handle, so I can work that frog a little bit easier. It's almost like I don't have a 7'6" rod in my hand, and it's not too heavy where I'm gonna be worn out throwing this thing all day long. I almost always spool up with 50-pound test Seaguar line. You know, I always use braid. I like the 50-pound test over 65 because a lot of times that mat goes way back in there and I can get a longer cast with that frog. I mean, with that 50-pound test, and I might be able to catch some of them fish I see blow up, or just get a little bit further than the guy before me that might have fished that grass bed. But you know, the 50-pound test is plenty heavy enough to hold it, you know, get a big fish out of those mats and stuff. So you know, I just always throw it on 50-pound test, you guys. Now, something else, if you get a big fish on up in a mat that's way up in there, I mean, if you can get him to come, if you can get him up on top of that grass and get him cranking out of there, or if he's, you know, moving the grass and the grass ain't super thick, but sometimes that grass is super thick. I'm telling you, you want to get that fish matted up in that grass or he's buried up in it, and then you want to kick that trolling motor on high and go into him, and you've got to keep pressure on that fish all the time, you guys. Do not give him slack. And when you get up there, be ready to get him, get ready to put a net underneath him. Heck with it, if it's a big fish, I'll scoop, you know, a big old mat of grass and the fish together, because there's been times where I think because that fish is matted up in that grass bed that I can reach down and get him. But it's amazing how many times I've had, you know, even 4 or 5 pound fish matted up in that grass, and we would put a net on him because you think he's so married up he can't get out there, and then you reach down there to get him, he'll shake one time and boom, he's gone. So trust me, don't worry about getting that grass all in your boat, all in your net, because, you know, you want to land those big fish, and just don't take the chance on it, you guys, I'm telling you. My next tip on this too is going to be sharpening your hooks on frogs. It is so critical to make sure those hooks on these frogs are needle sharp. And I know you're throwing a big rod and you're throwing a big line, and you got a lot of power to set the hook, but you never know how that fish is, how he's hitting that frog, how aggressive he's going to be that day. But sharpening your hooks on your frogs is so very important. And I usually just use a regular stone. You know, I keep this thing in the boat all the time. Now, one tip I'll do is I'll take the frog and I'll pull him back and I'll spin it around just like that, you guys. All right, see what I've done? I got that hook where it's so much easier to sharpen versus where it's next to that body, okay? Then what I'll usually do is I'll take that hook and go across both hooks just like that. Now I hit the sides, both sides. I'll rotate it around, hit it that side, hit that side right there. Stick my fingernail. That thing is sticking right in my fingernail right there, you know. And that thing is needle sharp. You know, don't overlook sharpening these hooks, you guys. I mean, even if you buy them brand new out of the package, don't overlook it, okay? Because it can mean losing a fish of a lifetime just because that hook wasn't sharp enough to penetrate that fish's mouth when you go to set the hook. You know, there's a lot to, you know, I'll just spin that frog back around, and like I said, you can see that hook and that body of that frog will lay right back in the right where it needs to be. But anyways, you know, there's a lot to when a fish grabs us. I mean, of course, these frogs, you know, if he don't hit on that thing and you get him just right and get a hook set on it, you can see it's a high percentage of the time you're going to lose or miss a fish anyways on a frog. But I'm telling you, if you'll keep those hooks needle sharp, you know, where you might get a 40 or 50% hook ratio on a frog, you may jump up to 60, 65, even 70% chance just by sharpening your hooks on a frog, guys, okay? One thing you want to do before you even start fishing, you know, back to the rod and reel, I usually like, you know, about a 7-to-1 reel gear ratio on this. And one of the main things you want to do is I'll pretty much lock that drag down as tight as I can. I'm not going to tighten it down all the way because I don't want to take a chance on breaking one of my rods. You can still get it good and tight where it's hard to pull out of there, and that way if you do have an 8 or 9 pound fish hit out in that grass, you're going to still penetrate that hook into that fish's mouth, and you know, you don't take a chance on breaking your rod, and you'll still be able to land that fish. All right, guys, I got one more tip on frog fish I'm going to give you. I've been using these things for years, and I keep them in my boat all the time. When I'm fishing mats, I usually throw these a lot, especially if I'm getting short strikes. This is a trailer hook that is made by Lake Fork. I don't know if anybody else makes these or not, but this thing right here will save your butt a lot when you're frog fishing. And it's real simple. They're not expensive at all, especially what you're putting into a fishing trip anyways. But they come in 2 or 3 different sizes. I've had these for a while, so I'm not for sure. Again, you want to sharpen that hook on that thing. Sharp hooks, guys, I'm telling you, it's super important. I don't care what you're fishing. Always check it. Just make sure it's sticking my fingernails. All right, so we got the trailer hook sharp. You see how that thing's made right there? All right, that what's going to do is that is going to slide on the over both of them hooks, okay? And you gotta mess with it just a little bit. I got one slid over. I don't know if you can see me very well there. Have to push in on that just a little bit there. All right. See, I've got both of them on right there, you guys. And now I'm gonna just pull that on over top of that frog. Make sure they go over the eyes, and they're made big enough where they'll go over the eyes like that, guys. There you go. All right, you see that stinger hook? You know, that right there can help you a lot. You know, you want to fix your skirts back on your frog after you do that. Pull it back out of that stinger hook. Well, like I say, Lake Fork makes these, and I don't know if anybody else does or not, but you'll want to grab you some of these, guys, okay? Now when you're fishing mats, this is fine because that hook's going to stay straight just like that, and you're going to catch a lot of them short strikes, okay? So, you know, that right there, with everything I've told you, you know, it's frog season. Hopefully these tips here help you guys land some big fish, get you a trophy this year frog fishing. It's a blast. I really think our best frog fishing is just yet to come. We've had so much weather, you know, with warming up, cooling off, warming up, cooling off. But it looks like Mother Nature's going to finally let it be fall. And I don't know how long fall will last until winter gets here. But take advantage on this frog fishing. And I see you on the water, you guys. Make sure you subscribe, guys. I appreciate it. Like this video. Leave a comment. Let me know what you may want another video on. If you're looking to do a guide trip, I got a few days left in November. After that, I'm going to be heading to Okeechobee. I'll be down there until after Thanksgiving. I'll be on Okeechobee, guiding there at Roland Martin Marina until the end of March. And it looks like them guys are already catching a lot of fish down there. So if you're looking for a guide trip over the winter time on Okeechobee, just yell at me. Got all my information on the description here. And I'll see you guys on the water. Thanks a lot and good fishing, guys.